Venezuela never saw it coming. In a bold and unmistakable signal, the skies above the Caribbean thundered with the arrival of American aircraft. The legendary 82nd Airborne Division, the United States Rapid Deployment Shock Force, had arrived. Moments later, paratroopers hurled themselves from the bellies of massive C-17 Globemaster III transport planes, their parachutes blooming against the tropical sun. What followed stunned Caracas, rattled the region, and sent shockwaves across the globe. This was no routine training drill. It was a message delivered from 15,000 feet, a message Venezuela could not ignore. To grasp the weight of this operation, one must first understand the 82nd Airborne Division. Based at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, it is among the most battle-hardened and prestigious units in the U.S. Army. Nicknamed the All-American Division, its soldiers have been the first boots on the ground in nearly every major U.S. conflict of the past century. They parachuted into Normandy on D-Day, fought grueling jungle battles in Vietnam, and carried out countless air assault missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. What makes the 82nd unique, however, is not only its history but its speed. The division is designed to mobilize within 18 hours of receiving orders, capable of deploying thousands of paratroopers onto foreign soil before an adversary can react. For Venezuela, watching this unit appear suddenly in the Caribbean was more than intimidating, it was terrifying. The operation began quietly at a U.S. air base where rows of C-17s prepared for launch. Each aircraft, capable of hauling troops, vehicles, and heavy equipment, taxied into position. Inside, soldiers calmly checked parachutes, weapons, and gear. They knew this mission was different. It wasn't routine, it was strategic, designed to be seen. As the aircraft roared into the night sky, satellites and radars in Caracas tracked every move, but the sheer scale and speed caught them off guard. By dawn, the C-17s reached their designated drop zone. On the ground, fishermen and coastal villagers watched in disbelief as the horizon filled with American silhouettes. One by one, paratroopers leapt into the Caribbean skies. Thousands of parachutes drifted down in near-perfect formation. To the untrained eye, it looked like an invasion, and that was precisely the point. This was psychological warfare. The United States wasn't just signaling Venezuela. It was sending a warning to Russia, Iran, and any other power seeking to expand influence in the hemisphere. America could deploy decisive combat power to Venezuela's doorstep within hours. Inside Caracas, the Ministry of Defense scrambled. Reports of radar contacts, satellite images, and eyewitness accounts flooded command posts. State media denounced the maneuver as a provocation and accused Washington of preparing for invasion. Fighter jets were dispatched to shadow the Americans, while air defense systems were placed on alert. Yet the reality was undeniable. Venezuela could do little to counter the 82nd Airborne. For Washington, the jump was more than a test of readiness. It was a demonstration of dominance, a reminder that the United States still holds the cards in its own hemisphere. And for Venezuela, it was a chilling wake-up call. Reports poured into Caracas. Radar blips, satellite imagery, and eyewitness accounts painted a picture that state-controlled media quickly broadcast as evidence of U.S. aggression. Interrupting regular programming, anchors declared the maneuver a provocation, accusing Washington of preparing the battlefield for invasion. President Nicolás Maduro hastily convened his top generals. Along the northern coast, air defense systems were placed on heightened alert, while Venezuelan fighter jets scrambled to shadow the American aircraft from a safe distance. Yet the imbalance was clear. Venezuela's forces, underprepared and poorly equipped compared to the 82nd Airborne, could do little more than watch. The sudden reality was undeniable. Elite U.S. paratroopers were within striking distance. Once on the ground, the Americans wasted no time. Paratroopers regrouped, secured perimeters, and established mock forward operating bases. Tactical drills unfolded in rapid succession, seizing ground objectives, forming defensive lines, and rehearsing escalation scenarios. From above, the scene resembled a rehearsal for invasion, and that was precisely how Caracas perceived it. The psychological impact was profound. For years, Venezuelan officials had dismissed U.S. threats as hollow rhetoric, But now, the sight of American paratroopers forming combat formations on Caribbean soil changed the calculus. To Washington, the drop was more than an airborne demonstration. It was a deliberate signal. To Venezuela, do not test us. To Colombia, we stand with you. To global rivals like Russia and Iran, America controls this hemisphere, and we can prove it anytime. This was not just about parachute landings. The 82nd Airborne was showcasing its ability to seize initiative, dictate tempo, and escalate faster than any adversary could respond. Militarily, it meant acting while forcing an opponent into reaction. Psychologically, it was about dominance. Caracas denounced the exercise, branding it a rehearsal for invasion. State media replayed dramatic images of paratroopers, framing them as aggressors bent on destabilizing the region. Venezuela's allies quickly joined the chorus. Cuba issued a fiery condemnation of imperialist aggression, while Nicaragua warned of dangerous destabilization. Yet behind closed doors, reactions were split. Colombia and several Caribbean nations quietly welcomed the show of force, viewing it as reassurance that Washington still possessed the will and capability to check Caracas and its foreign backers. The reverberations extended beyond Latin America. In Moscow and Tehran, the display did not go unnoticed. Both Russia and Iran, who have long supported Maduro with arms, advisors, and political backing, were alarmed. Russian analysts warned this was preparation for regime change, while Iranian state media accused Washington of neo-colonial intimidation. Intelligence suggested Russian advisors in Venezuela were placed on high alert, and Iranian-linked networks amplified propaganda portraying the U.S. as the true aggressor. That is where the danger lies. While Washington insisted the jump was a routine exercise, context made clear it was also a test of escalation. Analysts quickly identified possible next steps: larger airborne drills, naval deployments with carrier strike groups, amphibious landings, and temporary forward bases across the Caribbean. For Caracas, the danger was obvious. The walls were closing in. If tensions escalated, Venezuela could quickly find itself surrounded by air, by sea, and on land. Yet beyond geopolitics, there was a human reality to this moment. For the paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne, this was no ordinary exercise. Many had already faced combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. They knew the weight of what they were doing. Picture the silence before the jump, each soldier standing at the open door of a transport aircraft, staring down at the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. Then the leap, an act carried out with the awareness that they were not only tracked by Venezuelan radar, but observed by the world. That is the essence of psychological operations. A single airborne descent can echo across continents. For Nicolás Maduro, the deployment posed a dangerous dilemma: ignore it and risk appearing weak, confront it and risk igniting a conflict he could not win. His military scrambled surveillance planes, increased coastal patrols, and activated select air defenses. But the limits of Venezuela's capabilities were exposed. The jump revealed vulnerabilities that neither the regime nor its allies could deny. By the end of the operation, one truth was undeniable: the United States had reasserted dominance in the Caribbean. The jump was not just about readiness. It was about reminding the hemisphere and the world that America still held the upper hand. For Venezuela, it was a wake-up call. For Russia and Iran, a warning. For the 82nd Airborne, it was confirmation that more than a century of service had preserved its reputation as America's rapid response fire brigade. Yet this was only the beginning. As tensions rose, the pressing question became, what happens if the next move is not a drill? The Caribbean jump was the opening gambit in a larger chess match. Washington's planners were not asking whether Caracas noticed. They were calculating how it and its partners would respond. Escalation had shifted from theory to probability. The Pentagon already had tools on standby. Amphibious landings could put U.S. Marines on Caribbean shores, their armored vehicles rolling ashore to amplify the airborne message. Carrier strike groups could patrol just outside Venezuelan waters, their jets dominating the skies in minutes, highlighting the weakness of Venezuela's agging air force. Expanded joint drills with Colombia, Caracas's bitter rival, would signal isolation. Forward staging bases in nearby islands would shorten response times, ensuring Venezuela could be pressured from multiple directions at once. The region now sits on a knife's edge. Every maneuver, every statement carries consequences. If Venezuela escalates, the US can strike instantly. If foreign powers intervene, conflict could spiral. But if restraint prevails, this moment may stand as a warning, a reminder of American dominance without a shot fired. What cannot be ignored is this: the 82nd Airborne has arrived. When America's elite paratroopers move, the world pays attention. Venezuela is shaken, the Caribbean tense, and the next chapter unwritten.